To understand why I did what I did, you have to understand Mark. Mark isn't a bad guy in the way you'd expect. He's the guy who rescues kittens from gutters. He's the guy who remembers your mother's birthday and sends her flowers without being prompted. We had been married for 12 years of what I thought was absolute, bulletproof stability. I am a landscape architect, a person who literally designs environments to be beautiful and balanced. And Mark is a high-level consultant for a firm that handles crisis management. Irony is a cruel mistress, isn't it? We have 2 kids, a mortgage in a zip code we worked our tails off to get into, and a shared calendar that was synchronized down to the minute, or so I thought. The crack in the glass didn't start with a lipstick stain or a late-night text. It started with a red envelope. 3 months ago, Mark was in London for what he called a high-stakes merger. He left his old MacBook at home because the battery was shot and it was prone to overheating. My own laptop died mid-project on a Tuesday evening, and I had a deadline for a park renovation. I dug his old machine out of the office closet, plugged it in, and waited for the familiar chime. I didn't think I was snooping. I was just trying to finish a render for a client. While I was transferring files via a thumb drive, a notification popped up in the corner of the screen. It wasn't an email. It was a calendar alert from a deactivated iCloud account that had somehow stayed logged in on this local machine. It just said, Lily's birthday, gift in the red envelope. We don't know a Lily. I sat there for a long time, the blue light of the monitor reflecting off my glasses, staring at that name. My mind went through every cousin, every co-worker, every friend from college. Nothing. I checked our physical safe in the basement. Nothing. I checked the memory box in the attic, where we keep the kids' first shoes. Nothing. Then, I remembered Mark's obsession with what he calls analog security. He has a hollowed-out book of first edition of The Great Gatsby that sits on a high shelf in his office. He always joked that no one reads the classics anymore, so it was the safest place in the house. I pulled the book down. It felt light. I opened it, and my breath hitched. Inside was a vibrant red envelope. Inside that envelope was a key to a storage unit in a town 40 minutes away, and a handwritten note in Mark's precise, architectural script that said, "For the life we should have had. Happy 5th, Lily." My heart didn't just drop. It felt like it dissolved into acid in my stomach. Our youngest child is 4. Who was Lily? And why was her life the one they should have had? I didn't confront him when he landed. Mark is a professional manipulator, that's his job. He spends 40 hours a week spinning disasters into P of victories for billionaires. If I asked him about a red envelope, he'd have a lie ready before I finished a sentence, and I'd be the one feeling guilty for looking in his book. So, the next morning, after I dropped the kids at school, I drove the 40 minutes to the storage facility. It was a bleak, grey place on the edge of the industrial district. I expected a love nest. I expected silk sheets, expensive wine, maybe some lingerie that wasn't mine. What I found was much worse. It was a museum of a second family. The unit was packed with children's toys, a crib with a mobile of soft stars, and stacks of plastic bins labeled by year. I opened a leather-bound album sitting on a small folding table. There was Mark, not work Mark in a tailored suit, or dad Mark looking tired after a long day, but a version of my husband I didn't recognize. He looked relaxed. He was wearing a soft flannel shirt I'd never seen, holding a little girl with dark, curly hair, Lily. Next to him was a woman named Sarah. I knew Sarah. She was a former junior associate at his firm who had left for a better opportunity 6 years ago. I remember the going away party. I remember shaking her hand and wishing her luck. The dates on the photos overlapped with every single business trip to New York, every late night at the office, and even the weekend. He told me he was at a silent retreat to find his center after his father passed away. He wasn't just having an affair, he had built a parallel existence. He was paying for their apartment, their healthcare, their private preschool, all funneled through consulting fees that he'd scrub it from our joint accounts by creating a shell LLC. This is where I might be the asshole. Most people would scream, throw his clothes on the lawn, and call a lawyer, but Mark handles crises for a living. If I played it standard, he'd find a way to make me look like the unstable one. He'd hide the money, gaslight the children, and win the narrative in court. I decided to give him a crisis he couldn't manage. I decided to play the long game. Over the next 2 months, I became the perfect wife. I cooked his favorite beef bourguignon. I encouraged him to take more trips because he looked stressed. I told him how much I appreciated his hard work for our family. But while he was away, I was a ghost in his digital life. I hired a forensic accountant, privately a woman who specialized in hidden assets. We discovered he hadn't just been using his salary. He had been skimming from his firm's expense accounts and overbilling clients to fund Sarah's lifestyle. It wasn't just infidelity, it was high-level embezzlement. I also reached out to Sarah under a fake LinkedIn profile, pretending to be a recruiter. I learned that she thought I was the crazy ex-wife he was legally tied to, but didn't live with. He had told her we had been separated 4 years, but stayed together on paper for the kids' inheritance. He had lied to both of us, creating two different villains into different stories, so he could play the hero in both. On Lily's 5th birthday, the date from the red envelope I knew Mark was planning to be in Chicago for a conference. Instead, I told him I wanted to throw him an early achievement party to celebrate a big promotion he'd recently lied about. I invited his parents, who dote on him. I invited my parents. And most importantly, I invited his boss, the CEO of the firm, and the head of their legal department, telling them it was a surprise roast and celebration of his 10 years of loyalty. The night of the party, Mark walked through the door to a house full of the people he most wanted to impress. He looked terrified the moment he saw his boss standing near our fireplace. He knew something was off, but with 20 people shouting surprise, he had to play the part. He had to be the grateful son, the star employee, the loving husband. We eventually sat down in the living room. I stood up and told everyone I had made a tribute to Mark's career and legacy slideshow. The lights went out. The first few slides were what everyone expected. Our wedding in the vineyard, the birth of our son, Mark winning Consultant of the Year, standard, heartwarming stuff. Then, the music shifted. The upbeat just faded out, replaced by a slow, haunting cello arrangement. The next slide wasn't of us. It was a high-resolution scan of the photo I found in the storage unit, Mark and Sarah at the hospital, holding newborn Lily. The room went silent. I could hear Mark's breathing get heavy and ragged next to me. The next slide was the red envelope note, zoomed in so every word was legible. Then came the spreadsheets. I had worked with the accountant to make them incredibly easy to read, bright red bars, showing the company's money being transferred into an account that paid for Sarah's luxury SUV and the lease on their condo. The silence in the room was physical. It felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of the house. Mark's boss stood up first. He didn't yell. He was a man who handled billions of dollars. He just got very, very cold. He didn't say a word to Mark. He just looked at the screen, looked at me with a nod of grim understanding, and walked into our kitchen to call the firm's board of directors. Mark's mother started sobbing, asking him who that little girl was. Mark just sat there, the blue light of the projector hitting his face, his crisis management brain finally hitting a wall it couldn't climb over. There was no spin for this. When the guests cleared out, which happened quickly and awkwardly, I had the divorce papers ready on the dining room table. I told him he had 10 minutes to pack a bag before the police arrived. I hadn't just sent the evidence to his boss. I had couriered a full digital copy to the district attorney's office an hour before the party started. I didn't just leave him. I dismantled the very machinery of his life. I took his reputation, his career, his freedom, and his secrets, and laid them out under a spotlight. He's currently facing multiple felony charges for embezzlement and fraud. Sarah has moved back to her home state. Turns out, when she realized he was a criminal and a pathologically active husband, she wanted nothing to do with him. He had convinced her he was a lonely man doing his best, and the moment the mask slipped, she was gone. My family thinks I went too far. My sister says that exposing him in front of his boss and elderly parents was cruel and calculated, and that I should have just handled it quietly through lawyers for the sake of our kids' future reputation. Mark's defense team is calling me vindictive and malicious, claiming I've ruined the father of my children's ability to ever provide for them again. They say I turned a private betrayal into a public execution. I lost my husband, but he lost his mask. My kids are young. They just know Dad is away working on his mistakes for now. Eventually, they'll ask questions, and I'll have to figure out how to tell them that their father was two men at once. But in that moment, in that living room, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a landscape architect. I saw something overgrown, rotting, and dishonest, and I cleared it all away to start fresh. So, I have to ask ... am I the asshole? Should I have taken the high road? Or was the low road the only way to ensure a man like Mark couldn't lie his way out of the truth? I 3-4 AM, a senior manager at a mid-sized tech firm. I've been in this role for 3 years, and for 2 of those years, Sarah to 7F has been my absolute star. Sarah is brilliant, she's efficient, her code is clean, and she understands the business logic better than people who have been here for a decade. 6 months ago, a lead developer position opened up. Sarah applied, and honestly, on paper, she was the strongest internal candidate. However, our company has a strict leadership maturity policy. The higher-ups feel that while Sarah is a technical genius, she lacks the soft skills and executive presence required to manage a team of 15. They also pointed out she's only been in the industry for 4 years. Against my recommendation, the hiring committee chose an external candidate, Marcus 4OM. Marcus has 20 years of experience and a great track record of management, but he's coming from a different industry and doesn't know our specific tech stack very well. When I broke the news to Sarah, she was devastated but professional. Also, I thought the trouble started during Marcus's first week. Because Marcus is new to our niche, I asked Sarah to onboard him. I told her, "Sarah, you know the architecture better than anyone. Spend the next few weeks shadowing Marcus and teaching him the ropes of our specific systems." Sarah looked me dead in the eye and said, "No." I thought she was joking. She wasn't, she said. "My job description is senior developer. Training a lead developer on how to do the job I applied for is not in my contract. If Marcus is qualified for the salary he's making, which is significantly higher than mine, he should be able to figure it out himself or find resources that don't involve my labor." I tried to explain that this is how teams work, but she wouldn't budge. For the last month, she has been doing malicious compliance. She does her work perfectly and ahead of schedule, but the second Marcus asks her a question about why a certain system is built a certain way, she refers him to the 400-page internal documentation, which is notoriously outdated, and goes back to her desk. Because of this, Marcus is struggling. He's making mistakes that are slowing down the whole department. The higher-ups are looking at me asking why the transition is so rocky. Last week, I had enough. I sat Sarah down and told her that her lack of helpfulness was being noted as unprofessional conduct. I told her that if she didn't start cooperating with Marcus, I would have to remove her from the innovation project, a high-profile task she loves, and put her on maintenance and support, the most boring, soul-crushing part of the job. She told me that if I did that, she'd view it as constructive dismissal, and would take her talents elsewhere. I followed through and moved her to maintenance this morning. Now, half the team is cold toward me because they think I'm bullying the person who carries the department. Marcus is still lost. Sarah is doing her new boring tasks in total silence, and the atmosphere is toxic. My wife thinks I'm the all because you can't expect someone to teach their own replacement superior how to do the job they were rejected for. But I feel like I'm just trying to run a department and she's being a petty ego tripper who is sabotaging the company. I, 28, have been hanging out with 3 friends, Maya, 26, June, 29, and Sam, 28, since college. We're tight. Weekend brunches, bad reality show marathons, job pep talks. We all live in the same city and have been through breakups and promotions together. They're basically my chosen family. I've always considered myself the level-headed one of the group, the person who calls people out when they make bad choices, and also the one who is sometimes a little skeptical or sarcastic. I also have anxiety, which sometimes makes me worrying a lot, and I'm aware that can make me oversensitive. Important because that's how the whole jealousy thing started. In January, Maya started seeing someone. She told us casually one Sunday over coffee that she'd met a guy at an art gallery opening, loved the aesthetic, right, and that they'd been texting for a couple of weeks. She was excited and oddly private, not secretive, just guarded. She described him as charming, very into art, and that he'd invited her to a weekend trip to a nearby winery. She showed us a picture, tall, well-dressed, warm smile, very movie boyfriend. She also mentioned, almost in passing, that he was very successful. She used words like generous and comfortable, and made a joke about someone in my life who actually has a retirement plan. We made the usual jokes about her landing a rich guy, and we all elbowed each other and laughed. 3 weeks later, she brought him to hang out with the group. For context, we have an easy dynamic: sarcasm, roasting, quick check-ins if anyone's being dumb. We were at Sam's apartment for pizza and a gay night. He arrived impeccably dressed, introduced himself politely, and then, I'll be honest, he was charming. He listened when Maya talked. He remembered tiny details from past conversations. He complimented the room without sounding performative. He laughed at my jokes. He told a self-deprecating story that was amusing and not showy. He also casually dropped a detail. He owns several properties and is renovating one near the coast. We all raised our eyebrows. He wasn't loud about his wealth. It was this calm, steady confidence, not a braggart, I felt. A twinge of something, not pure jealousy, more like suspicion. How did someone so polished and seemingly kind exist, and also genuinely like my friend? It felt unreal. Things escalated quickly. For the next couple months, Maya and this guy, his name is Alex, were essentially inseparable. He sent flowers to her work. He took Maya and the group to a small dinner at a private dining club that turned out to have a sommelier and a tasting menu. He booked a weekend getaway that he offered to cover for all of us. We accepted because, free trip. Whenever she posted about him, the captions were coy and sweet, and the comments were all the "oh my god you two" emojis. I was happy for her. I really was. She had been through a rough breakup the year before and deserved someone who was present and thoughtful. But something in me kept whispering that I was seeing only the curated version of him. My friends started noticing little things. June texted me, "Do you think he's too involved?" and sent screenshots of a conversation where Maya seemed to be explaining why she couldn't come out last minute because she had plans with Alex. Sam messaged, "He seems to want to be in every decision she makes, At first I shrugged those off. I told them I thought it was sweet that she'd finally found someone who cared about scheduling and plans. I said maybe we were being cynical. I told them, privately, that I didn't want to be the friend who resented someone for making her happy. But then a couple of incidents happened that I didn't like. One evening Maya invited the four of us plus Alex to a small dinner. Alex arrived early and immediately started rearranging table settings. Very small detail, but he asked Sam, who's vegan, a bunch of specific questions about what he'd eat, and then directed the host on what to order. It came off as thoughtful at first, but when Sam suggested bringing a dish of his own, Alex waved it off and said, "We've already taken care of it." Sam looked a little weird about it, and later told us he felt sidelined. Maya laughed, dismissed it as his way, and told Sam not to worry. A more pointed thing happened when Alex began to be present in conversations in a way that felt controlling. At a brunch, June mentioned something she wanted to try, a class, an idea, a side hustle, and Alex immediately said, "Have you thought about how that affects your savings?" He offered to introduce her to a financial advisor. He took over the planning of small things like weekend activities and subtly suggested better options. He gave unsolicited critiques about the way our friend group spent money or managed schedules. It was always phrased as helpfulness, but there was this undercurrent of "I know best." None of us voiced that out loud at the time, because it was small, and also, again, he was polite and well-mannered. The real turning point, the thing my friends blew up about, happened a month later. Maya and Alex invited us to a housewarming party for a place he'd bought. It was a stunning place, full of art and light. Everything looked curated. During the party, I went to the kitchen to get water and overheard a fragment of conversation between Alex and Maya's landlord, small town. The landlord was a contractor who'd been helping finish the place. Alex was asking about a lien on a small property the landlord managed. The contractor said it was messy, and Alex replied with a tight laugh and said, "We'll handle it. Money solves that." The contractor said something like, "We'll see," and Alex said, "Money finds its way." The tone made something cold coil in my stomach. I told the girls later, I overheard him saying something weird about using money to solve things. June got quiet. Sam's face changed. June said, "That's not weird. That's manipulative. That's the kind of thing that sounds like someone who thinks rules are for other people." I shrugged and said, "Or he's a pragmatic businessman." Maya, when I asked, privately, on the walk home, said, "He's just practical. He solves problems." Part of me felt like I was being petty, seeing a villain where there was none. A chunk of the story, the jealousy accusation, that started it all. At the time I thought my friends were being dramatic. They started swapping concern texts more and more. One night, after a heated group text where June suggested we gently ask Maya if she was okay, I wrote a reply that was worse than I intended. It was a long message about how everyone was being judgmental and how Maya deserved to enjoy this relationship without being policed. I said, "You don't get to come in and act like you're protecting her from her choices. If she's happy, why are we trying to tear that down?" I tried to sound reasonable, but there was a sting I couldn't hide. I said something like, "Are we actually jealous because he's richer and pays more attention to her?" I framed our concern as envy. That message blew up. June replied with a voice note. She was quiet and controlled, and then said, "This isn't about money. This is about the way he isolates her. This is about seeing someone gaslight her and not intervening." Sam wrote, "Grace under pressure isn't the same as being smacked down." Maya didn't respond at first. The conversation later became a group meeting. They wanted to talk because they were worried I wasn't seeing what they saw. I went into the talk defensive. I told them I was tired of the implication that I was jealous of Maya's new boyfriend. I said I was being protective of Maya's space. I thought it was condescending the way Alex commented on what she wore or how she spent on hobbies. I told them I'd seen no evidence of abuse. I told them I thought they were overreacting, and that maybe they were threatened by someone who could up the group's lifestyle. I also, to my shame, accused June of being jealous because she hasn't been in a lasting relationship. I immediately regretted the personal jab, but it came out. That accusation ruptured the meeting. June cried. Sam was angry. Maya, who until then had been quiet, maybe processing, said, with a soft but clear voice, I invited you all into my life. I'm glad you care, but the reason we've been worried isn't money. It's the subtle things he does. Then she told a story that laid out everything we'd seen, but hadn't connected. Maya said, early in their relationship, Alex had told her he didn't like her close relationship with her mother, that it was too dependent. He joked about how mums can be manipulative and then, over the next few weeks, started steering Maya away from some family plans, suggesting they plan their own holidays. When she pushed back, he'd say, I'm only trying to make things easier. She admitted she started telling her mom less about date nights and small things because she didn't want to make Alex uncomfortable. She also said Alex picked fights with her over trivial things, and then blamed her for being sensitive. He had a way of making her apologize even when she wasn't sure what for. Maya's voice broke when she described spending 3 hours polishing details for a dinner he was hosting, and then him being silent and distant the whole night, only to later tell her she overinvested in other people's opinions. She said he loved dramatically saving her from awkward situations by paying the bill in a way that made other people's offers seem cheap. She said something that made the room go very still. When I asked him why he did that, he said, I take care of the chaos, so you don't have to. I liked that at first. Now I feel like I'm living my life in his terms. At this point, I felt a physical lurch. I thought, okay, this is more than me being jealous, but I still had pride. I still had the defense that, because Maya was choosing him, how could I say she was being manipulated? She's an adult, she could leave. We talked more for an hour. My friends recounted moments I hadn't witnessed, times when Alex turned a group outing into his plan, offered money in a way that made others feel awkward, made a joke about the needy friend who's always late that clearly referenced June, then smoothed it over by paying for the taxi. They shared texts where he congratulated Maya on minor achievements, and then immediately corrected her in the same message about some trivial fact. The correction was just small enough to leave her doubting herself, but large enough that outsiders might not notice. The argument took the form of two opposing views. I kept saying if she's happy, let her be, and they kept saying she's not thriving, she's shrinking. It felt like we were arguing philosophy. I left that night with a messy mix of emotions, defensive, guilty, and strangely afraid that maybe I had been jealous. A week later, something concrete happened that changed everything. Maya didn't show up to our regular Friday night. She texted that she was tired. We suspected she was with Alex. 2 days later, Sam and June bumped into Maya at a little art fair. Maya looked pale. They asked casually how she was. She said she and Alex had had a fight and that she'd gone to see her mom. She said she needed to figure things out. Then Maya sent a long message to the group chat. She said she'd been thinking and that she found herself apologizing for things she loved, food choices, friends, an old job she liked but doesn't mention anymore. She admitted she'd been trying to moderate her sense of humor in front of Alex because he doesn't like sarcasm that targets people who aren't present. She said something that hit me like a hammer. He told me last week I was too defensive, and that was why my friendships were strained. He asked me if I wanted to be the person who had friends or the person who had a life that is free of mess. He said I had to choose. She wrote, I want you to know I heard you. I didn't want to at first. I thought you were jealous. I told you to stop acting like you know better than me. But now I see what you were trying to protect me from. I'm sorry for not listening sooner. Maya said she'd broken up with Alex. I felt relieved, guilty, proud, triumphant. I don't have one good word for it. When she came over the next night, we all sat in the living room, a family at the kitchen table. She explained that the final straw was when Alex insisted she not go to her cousin's wedding because it wasn't the right crowd, and then asked her to join a business dinner instead. He called her cousin dramatic and implied the family had poor taste. Maya said she had realized that the decision to skip the wedding was being made for her and not by her. She said she'd simply sat in the car for a long time and then texted Alex that she'd go to the wedding alone. He texted back, "If you go, don't tell me about it." She'd gone anyway and said it was like breathing again. At first the group wanted to throw a party. We congratulated her. We felt validated that we'd been right. Then, in the afterglow, something happened that's now the source of me questioning everything. When we were alone later that evening, Maya pulled me aside. She was quiet and apologetic. She said, "I heard that thing you said in the group message about jealousy." She looked at me carefully. It stung. "You accused us of being jealous, and then accused June personally. I know you were trying to defend me, but it came out sharp. I wanted to say I was sorry immediately, and I did." I told her I'd been defensive because I felt like we were intruding. I said I was trying to protect her from being outcasted by the group for making different choices. I said I'd overreacted. Maya hugged me and said, "What I want you to understand is that I didn't break up with him because of money or because your texts made me see him for who he is. I broke up with him because I saw the version of myself he wanted, and I didn't like that person. But when you accused us of jealousy, it hurt because it made me think you didn't trust my judgment. You were trying to help, but you made it feel like you were protecting your turf." I felt small. I told her I was sorry and that I should have listened. Then she said something that made me choke. "But also, and I don't want you to think this absolves what you said. If you had noticed sooner, if you'd been braver and brought it up earlier when you heard the tiny things, I might have spotted the pattern sooner. I think you saw some of it. You just closed the rest off because you didn't want to be the friend who was jealous. Don't overcorrect yourself into silence next time." That line haunted me. I replayed everything I'd said. The group text accusing them of being jealous, my personal attack on June, my insistence that if Maya was happy, that was enough. I tried to reconcile being defensive with being protective. I tried to separate my ego. I didn't want to be the jealous friend from my intuition something was wrong. Here's the twist. A week later, after the breakup, a mutual acquaintance, someone who works part-time for Alex's real estate company, reached out to Sam. She said quietly that Alex had a pattern. He charmed people in small circles, then started to ask for exclusive loyalty, and would use his money to reward conformity. She mentioned a messy lawsuit with a former partner that had been quietly settled. She said he was not illegal, not obviously criminal, but that he had a habit of folding others into his agenda and then making it expensive to leave. Nothing that looked like outright fraud, but a pattern of emotional leverage married to financial leverage. I felt sick because on the one hand, my friends had been right about seeing the pattern. On the other, I'd been slow and defensive in calling it out. I'd indeed accused them of jealousy instead of saying, "Hey, something feels off. Can we document what we see?" My jealousy defense had been a dodge. I think the root of my behavior was fear. Fear of being wrong and fear of being the friend who ruins a relationship. That fear morphed into an identity-protecting posture. I want to be the fair, rational one. Admit that I'd been jealous and I lose that identity. So here's the part where I lay out what I did wrong and why I need to know if I'm the jerk. I publicly accused my friends of jealousy in a group message aired of privately asking questions. That was mean and unnecessary. I should have chosen a kinder route to express skepticism. I owe June a huge apology for bringing up her relationship status as a put-down. I framed our concern as if it was about money. That minimized the actual emotional and behavioral red flags they were seeing and made them feel like I was prioritizing status over safety. I let my pride and fear of being jealous keep me from seeing the pattern clearly. I tried to protect my self-image rather than practice curiosity and humility. At the same time, I did notice things, the table rearranging, the weird comments, and I didn't act on those things in a constructive way. I lashed out instead. What I did right, I did eventually listen. I apologized, and Maya accepted. I publicly retracted my jealousy accusation and apologized to the group. I confronted my own defensiveness and acknowledged my privilege. I can't imagine how hard it is to be told your partner is fixing your family for you. I supported Maya in practical ways during the breakup, touring apartments, texts at midnight, bringing over food. I tried to be present. Maya told me she's okay now. She's back to seeing her mother more. She's laughing at our inside jokes again. And she's scheduling things with us without checking in first with anyone else. She's also starting therapy to process how quickly she'd given up parts of herself for someone charming and wealthy. She said she forgives me. I feel very grateful. But here's my current dilemma. After everything, I still feel guilty for having been the person who first accused the group of jealousy and for making June feel attacked. I keep replaying the moments I said, "Are you jealous?" in that message. The truth is, I was partly jealous of the way money made certain things easier, jealous of how the group dynamic changed when someone new with different options came in. That doesn't excuse me. I know it made me blind in places my friends clearly saw. So, AITA, did my defensiveness and that nasty group message make me the jerk even though my friends were right about Alex being manipulative? Am I being hard on myself for a natural reaction jealousy that I managed to correct? Or did I cause real harm that deserves the kind of guilt that won't go away? I want to be honest about what I did, but I also want clarity. Was my behavior forgivable given that I eventually apologized and helped? Or should I be doing more to make amends? I'm not asking for moral absolution. I want people to call out what was wrong and what was okay. Please be harsh if I deserve it. I'll own up. TL. Doctor. My friend Maya dated a wealthy, charming man named Alex who turned out to be manipulative. Her friend group raised concerns. I accused them of being jealous and, in one mean group message, personally attacked June. Maya eventually broke up with Alex and said my friends were right. She apologized for doubting them, and I apologized too. I feel guilty and want to know whether I was the asshole for the way I reacted and framed their concerns. I've always been the responsible one in the Miller family, while my older brother, Julian, was the golden boy who could do no wrong. I was the one who stayed behind to manage our father's estate, keep the family business afloat, and make sure our mother's medical bills were paid. Julian was the visionary, the charming entrepreneur who was always one big investment away from changing the world. I was just the accountant. I was the safety net. Also I thought, until the day I found the ledger hidden in the crawl space of our childhood home. To understand the weight of this, you have to understand the dynamic. My father passed away 3 years ago. On his deathbed, he made me promise to take care of Julian. He said Julian had a sensitive soul and wasn't built for the harsh realities of the world. So, for 3 years, I did exactly that. When Julian's third tech startup failed, I dipped into my own savings to cover his rent. When he told me he was struggling with burnout, I took over his share of the property taxes. I worked 60-hour weeks so my brother could find himself in Europe and the Hamptons. The crack in our family facade started with a leaky pipe in the basement of the old house. I was down there with a wrench, tearing back a piece of rotted insulation, when I found a fireproof box tucked behind a joist. It wasn't my father's. It was Julian's. And inside wasn't just money. It was a betrayal so deep, it made the last decade of my life feel like a hallucination. Inside the box was a second will. Not a fake one, but the original one. Our father hadn't left the bulk of the estate to be managed by the responsible son. He had left a secret trust nearly $4 million in liquid assets directly to me, intended to be triggered on my 30th birthday. Julian had found it first, being the executor and the favorite. He had suppressed the document and replaced it with a version that gave him full control of the discretionary spending. For 3 years, my brother had been living off my inheritance, while simultaneously asking me for loans from my meager salary. He had watched me struggle to pay for our mother's specialized memory care, watched me drive a 10-year-old car with a failing transmission, and watched me cry at the kitchen table over spreadsheets, all while he had millions of my dollars sitting in an offshore account. I didn't call the police, not yet, like a fool, or maybe like a man who had been pushed too far. I wanted to see how deep the rabbit hole went. I spent 4 months being the helpful little brother. I helped Julian plan his grand engagement gala. He was marrying into the Thorne family old money, high society, the kind of people who value lineage and integrity above all else. Julian was desperate to look like the self-made tycoon he pretended to be. I volunteered to handle the finances for the gala. I told him I'd manage the vendors, the guest list, and the family legacy video that would play before he proposed to his fiancée, Claire Thorne. He was so busy picking out custom tuxedos and vintage champagne that he didn't notice I was actually building a digital guillotine. The night of the gala was breathtaking. It was held at a historic manor, filled with the city's elite, the press, and the entire Thorne family. Julian was at the center of it all, glowing in the candlelight, leaning in to whisper to Claire about their bright future. He looked like a king. I felt like a ghost. When it was time for the family legacy video, the room went dark. Julian took Claire's hand and led her to the front of the ballroom. "I want to show everyone where I came from," he said into the microphone, his voice thick with rehearsed emotion. "The values my father instilled in me: honesty, sacrifice, and family." The video started. The first 60 seconds were beautiful. Grainy footage of us playing in the yard, our father smiling at the camera, the Miller family crest. But then, the music a soft, uplifting piano track hit a sharp, dissonant chord and cut out completely. The screen flickered to a high-resolution scan of the fireproof box in the crawl space. Then, a side-by-side comparison of the real will and the forged one Julian had used in probate. I'd hired a handwriting expert to annotate the forgery in bright red digital ink. The room was so quiet, you could hear the bubbles popping in the champagne glasses. The next slide showed Julian's bank statements, the ones I had legally obtained through a private investigator linked directly to the loans I had given him. It showed him spending $50,000 on a watch in Paris the same week I had told him I couldn't afford a vacation because I was paying for Mom's physical therapy. But I wasn't done. The final slide was a recording. I'd bugged our father's office months ago when I suspected Julian was hiding more documents. It was a recording of Julian talking to his lawyer, laughing about how the accountant me was too busy playing hero to realize he was working for free to build Julian's empire. "He's got the brain for numbers," Julian's voice echoed through the ballroom, "but he doesn't have the stomach for the win. He'll keep paying my bills until the day he dies because he thinks it's what Dad wanted." The lights didn't come back on for a long time. When they did, Julian was standing alone. Claire Thorne had already dropped his hand and was walking toward her father. The Thorne family doesn't associate with new money frauds, and they certainly don't associate with criminals. Julian's grand engagement ended with him being served with a lawsuit for fraud, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty there on the dance floor. I had the process server wait in the wings until the video ended. It's been 6 months. Julian is bankrupt and facing significant prison time. Our mother is now in the best care facility in the country, funded by the trust I finally reclaimed. But my family, my aunts, my cousins, they're horrified. They say I humiliated the family name beyond repair. They say that even if Julian was a thief, I didn't have to destroy him in front of the world. They argue that I could have settled it in a lawyer's office and kept the Miller dignity intact. My brother sends me letters from his lawyer's office, claiming I've murdered his soul and that I'm the real villain for being so cold-blooded and theatrical with my revenge. He says I took a sibling rivalry and turned it into a federal case. I don't feel like a villain. I feel like the man who finally stopped being a safety net for a person who was trying to let me fall. But looking at the empty seats at Thanksgiving this year, I have to wonder ... AITA, was the public exposure too much? Should I have protected the family name, even if the person carrying it was a monster? They say the first anniversary is the paper anniversary. Traditionally, you're supposed to gift your spouse something made of paper, a journal, a letter, maybe a framed map of where you met. For our first anniversary, I gave my husband, Elias, a leather-bound folder. Inside were 36 pages of high-resolution photographs, bank statements, and a copy of a birth certificate for a child that wasn't mine. To everyone in our social circle, Elias and I were the it couple. He's a pediatric surgeon with the kind of bedside manner that makes parents feel like they're in the hands of a saint. I'm a senior partner at a top-tier architectural firm. We had the sprawling glass house in the hills, the charity gala invitations, and the reputation for being the most supportive, communicative partners in the city. Elias was the man who surprised me with coffee in bed every single morning and left sticky notes on the bathroom mirror, telling me I was his North Star. The first shadow didn't appear because of a late-night phone call or a secret password. It appeared because of a Synth smart home hub. 6 months ago, Elias bought a high-end home automation system. He's a tech enthusiast, always wanting the newest gadget. One evening, while he was on call at the hospital, the system's doorbell camera sent a notification to my tablet. It wasn't a motion alert at our front door. It was a notification from a second residence that had been linked to our primary account, a ghost property I didn't know we owned. I clicked the live feed. I expected to see a vacant rental or maybe an investment property he'd bought as a surprise. Instead, I saw a woman in her early 30s carrying a toddler through a front door in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood 3 towns over. The toddler was wearing a tiny future surgeon t-shirt. He had Elias's distinctive, lopsided smile and the same dark, deep-set eyes. I didn't scream. I didn't call him. My career in architecture has taught me that if you find a crack in the foundation, you don't just patch it. You excavate until you find the source of the rot. Over the next 4 months, I lived a double life that would have made a spy blush. I used my firm's resources to run background checks on the property. It was owned by a holding company called Serenity Oaks LLC. I traced the LLC back to a registered agent who happened to be Elias's college roommate. I hired a private investigator who specialized in discrete family matters. The report I received was a masterpiece of devastation. Elias hadn't just been having an affair. He had been living a complete, alternative life for nearly 4 years, long before we even got engaged. The woman, Maya, was a former nurse at his hospital. She believed Elias was an international relief doctor who spent 6 months of the year on mission in remote areas without cell service. When he was with me, he was at the hospital or at a conference. When he was with her, he was home from the mission. He had 2 bank accounts, 2 phones, 2 cars, and 2 sets of loving parents who believed entirely different versions of his life. He had even used his surgical credentials to falsify mission reports to explain his long absences to Maya. I could have filed for divorce that day, but I thought about the 3 years I'd spent building a life with a ghost. I thought about the way he looked me in the eye every morning and told me I was the only woman he'd ever loved. I decided that a man who lives by the mask should have that mask removed in front of the largest audience possible. Our first anniversary fell on the same night as the Children's Hospital Founders Gala. Elias was being honored as Doctor of the Year. It was the biggest night of his professional life. 300 of the city's most influential people were in attendance. I spent $4,000 on a custom silk gown. I sat at the head table, smiling, touching his hand, and playing the part of the proud wife. When it was time for the tribute video before his acceptance speech, I told the event coordinator that I had a special surprise addition to the media reel, a personal message from his family. Elias stood at the podium, basking in the standing ovation. "I couldn't have done any of this without my beautiful wife," he said into the microphone, his voice cracking with fake emotion. "She's my rock, my moral compass, and the person who keeps me grounded." It didn't start with photos of us. It started with the doorbell camera footage of Maya and the toddler. Then, it cut to a side-by-side montage of Elias's mission reports, next to photos of us on vacation in Amalfi during the same dates. I'd edited it to be clinical, cold, and undeniable. The final slide was a scan of the toddler's birth certificate, followed by a video recorded earlier that week. I had sat Maya down and told her the truth. The video showed her crying, holding her son, and saying to the camera, "Elias, if you're watching this, I hope the mission was worth it." The gala went from a celebration to a morgue in 10 seconds. I watched from the front row as Elias's face went from tanned and glowing to a sickly, translucent white. He tried to speak, but the microphone was still live, and the only sound that came out was a high-pitched, panicked wheeze. His boss, the chief of surgery, stood up and walked out without a word. The donors who had been cheering moments ago were now looking at their plates in shame. I didn't say a word. I simply stood up, placed the leather-bound paper anniversary folder on the podium in front of him, and walked out of the ballroom. It's been a year since that night. Elias lost his position at the hospital. His medical license is under review for the falsification of records, and Maya and I have formed a strange, somber alliance to ensure our respective legal interests are protected. But my social circle is divided. Some people call me a legend, a woman who refused to be a silent victim. Others, including Elias's sister, say I'm a psychopath. They say that by exposing him at a charity gala, I didn't just hurt Elias. I hurt the hospital, the charity, and the toddler, who will one day grow up and see his father's destruction on the internet. They say I could have had my justice in a boardroom, but I chose emotional terrorism instead. Elias is currently living in a studio apartment, working as a medical consultant for an insurance firm. He sends me emails begging foreclosure, saying that I didn't just divorce him, I erased his existence. I don't feel like I erased him. I feel like I just turned the lights on in a room he'd kept dark for years. But when I see the look on people's faces when I walk into a room, the mixture of respect and genuine fear, I have to wonder, AITA, was the paper anniversary too much? Should I have protected the sanctity of the hospital and the charity? Or was the public truth the only real currency left? They say that in a good marriage, there are no secrets. But in my marriage to David, there weren't just secrets. There were entirely different floor plans. David is a structural engineer, a man who literally calculates the stress points of skyscrapers to ensure they never collapse. I'm a high-end interior designer. Together, We were the power couple of the local architectural scene. Our home was a brutalist masterpiece of concrete and glass, featured in 3 different magazines. We had the 2-car garage, the weekend hiking trips, and the 10-year track record of what I thought was absolute, unwavering transparency. The collapse didn't start with a crash. It started with a ghost in the machine, specifically a recurring subscription error on our shared family iPad. 6 months ago, a notification kept popping up for a cloud storage account I didn't recognize. It was under an email address that looked like a random string of numbers, D788@outlook.com. I assumed it was a work account for one of David's infrastructure projects. But the credit card associated with the overdue balance was a private Visa I'd never seen. I didn't confront him. When you spend your life looking at blueprints, you learn that the most dangerous flaws are the ones hidden behind the drywall. I used my professional contacts to track the billing address of that mysterious Visa. It wasn't a bank. It was a P.O. box in a small coastal town, 3 hours north of our city, a place David claimed to visit once a month for site inspections on a bridge project. I drove up there on a Tuesday, the rain blurring the windshield as I followed a GPS coordinate I'd pulled from his deleted browser history. I expected to find a modest apartment or perhaps a gambling habit. Instead, I found a Victorian seaside cottage, painted a soft, mocking lavender. I sat in my car and watched. At 5 p.m., a woman came out onto the porch. She was younger than me, wearing a paint-stained apron. She was followed by 2 golden retrievers and a 5-year-old boy who was wearing a miniature version of David's favorite yellow rain slicker. A few minutes later, a silver SUV pulled into the driveway. It wasn't David's car, at least, not the one he kept in our garage. It was a rugged Jeep I'd never seen him drive. David stepped out, scooped the boy up in a hug, and kissed the woman with a familiarity that made my skin turn to ice. He wasn't just having an affair, he had built a second, softer life. While our life in the city was all concrete, glass, and professional ambition, this life was all seaside charm and domestic bliss. He was the structural engineer with me, and apparently a freelance consultant with her. I spent the next 3 months excavating his double life with the precision of a demolition crew. I discovered that he had been siphoning off consulting fees from his firm for years, funneling nearly $800,000 into a trust fund for the boy Leo and the mortgage on the lavender cottage. He had told the woman, Elena, that he was a widower who worked in the city during the week to provide for them. He had even shown her a death certificate with my name on it to explain why he could never bring her to his former home. The paper anniversary was approaching for our 10th year of marriage. We were hosting a decade of design gala at our home, inviting our biggest clients, the city's political elite, and the partners from his engineering firm. I spent $60,000 on the catering alone. I wanted the evening to be perfect because I wanted the fall to be absolute. During the dinner, when the champagne was flowing and the toasts were beginning, I stood up. I told everyone I had a special anniversary commission to reveal a scalpel of the project David was most proud of. 2 waiters carried in a large object covered in a black velvet cloth. David has spent years building structures that stand the test of time, I said, my voice as steady as a reinforced beam. But tonight, I want to show you the one he's been working on in secret. I pulled the cloth away. It wasn't a bridge. It was a perfect 1/12 scale model of the lavender Victorian cottage. I'd spent weeks building it from the photos my private investigator had taken. Inside the miniature windows, I had placed tiny, high-resolution photos of David, Elena, and Leo playing in the yard. The room went so quiet, I could hear the ice melting in the seafood tower. David's face didn't just go pale. It looked like it was being erased from the inside out. And because David is so generous, I continued, I've invited his other family to join the celebration. I pointed toward the glass doors of our terrace. Elena was standing there, holding Leo's hand. I had sent a car for her. telling her David was throwing a surprise homecoming party to celebrate his retirement from the city, so they could finally live together full-time. The collision was spectacular. Elena realized in a heartbeat that the widower she loved was standing next to a very much alive wife. David's boss realized that the consulting fees David had been claiming were a map to corporate fraud, and our perfect social circle realized they were witnesses to a social homicide. I didn't stay for the screaming. I had my bags already packed in the car. I had signed the divorce papers and left them in the miniature mailbox of the model cottage. It's been 8 months. David's firm sued him for every penny of the embezzled funds. Elena has filed for child support, and because he's legally broke and unemployed, he's living in his parents' basement. But my sister says I'm the monster. She says that by involving a 5-year-old child and a woman who was also a victim, I crossed a line from justice into sadism. She says that I ruined the boy's image of his father for the sake of a dramatic reveal. I don't feel like a monster. I feel like an interior designer who found a load-bearing lie and decided to pull it out to see if the whole house would fall. It did, but when I wake up in my new, smaller apartment and I think about that lavender slicker ... I have to wonder, AITA, was the model home too much? Should I have handled it in a lawyer's office? Or is the only way to destroy a structural lie to make it collapse in public? They say that in a high-end marriage, the most important thing isn't love, it's the architectural integrity of the image you present to the world. My husband, Julian, was a master of that integrity. He's a restoration architect, a man whose entire career is built on taking crumbling, historical ruins and making them look pristine, strong and timeless. I'm a fine art appraiser. I spend my days looking for forgeries, identifying the subtle brushstrokes that prove a masterpiece is actually a lie. We lived in a restored 1920s brownstone that was the envy of the city. We had the curated art collection, the black-tie charity circuit, and a 10-year marriage that everyone cited as the gold standard of partnership. Julian was the man who held my hand at every gallery opening and whispered that I was the only masterpiece he ever cared about. The first crack in the masonry didn't appear because of a scandalous photo. It appeared because of a lost set of keys. 4 months ago, Julian left for a restoration site in Charleston. He realized halfway to the airport that he'd left his master key ring, the one that opens every one of his active projects, on the console of his car. He called me, frantic, asking me to go to his private studio in the garden house and find his backup set. I'd been in his studio 1,000 times, but I had never looked at his archive cabinet. It was a massive, antique flat-file drawer meant for blueprints. While looking for the keys, I noticed a drawer that was slightly misaligned. When I pulled it, it didn't reveal blueprints of a cathedral or a library. It revealed a hidden compartment. Inside was a second set of master keys. These weren't for historical buildings. They were for a life I didn't recognize. There was a key to a luxury condo in a nearby city, a key to a safe deposit box, and a small, leather-bound ledger. I didn't call him. I'm an appraiser. I know that if you find a suspicious mark on a canvas, you don't alert the gallery until you've verified the fraud. I took the keys and the ledger. The ledger was a meticulously kept record of maintenance costs for a woman named Clara and a 7-year-old girl, Mia. Julian hadn't just been restoring old buildings. He had been restoring a whole other family. Clara was the daughter of a man Julian had apprenticed under decades ago. She lived in a penthouse Julian had restored using our joint investment funds. The ledger showed that for 7 years, Julian had been splitting his time with surgical precision. He had a travel schedule that was actually a rotation between 2 homes. He had used his reputation for late nights at the job site to facilitate a second domesticity. He was Uncle Julian to Mia, a benefactor who visited her every week, providing a life of private schools and equestrian lessons, all funded by siphoning off the restoration budgets of his high-profile clients. I spent the next 3 months behaving like the perfect, supportive wife. I hosted his client dinners. I helped him prepare for his Lifetime Achievement Award ceremony, which coincided with our 10th anniversary. But in the shadows, I was an appraiser at work. I visited Clara. I didn't tell her who I was. I pretended to be a potential buyer for a unit in her building. I saw Julian's photos on her mantle. I saw Mia's drawings of Daddy pinned to the fridge. Julian had told Clara he was a high-level government contractor whose work was so classified he could never be seen with her in public. He was a hero to her and a saint to me. Our 10th anniversary gala was held at the city's Museum of Architecture. It was a black-tie event with 400 people, including the mayor and the city's most prominent developers. Julian was the guest of honor. I had curated a digital retrospective of his work to be projected onto the limestone walls of the museum's Great Hall. Elias stood on the stage, the light catching the silver at his temples. He looked every bit the pillar of the community. A building is only as strong as its foundation, he told the crowd, his voice resonating with practiced gravitas. And my foundation has always been my wife. The retrospective began. The first few minutes were beautiful sweeping drone shots of his restored cathedrals and libraries. But then, the images shifted. The projection cut to a high-resolution scan of the ledger. It showed the line items where church restoration fund money had been diverted to Mia's tuition. Then, it showed a video I'd recorded, a side-by-side comparison of Julian's classified work trips and the GPS data from his car, which showed him parked at Clara's penthouse for 48 hours at a time. The final image was a photo of the master keys I'd found in his studio, overlaid with a photo of Julian at Mia's 7th birthday party, blowing out candles. The Great Hall, which usually echoed with conversation, became a tune. Julian's hand, which was gripping the podium, began to shake so violently that the microphone picked up the rhythmic thud of wood against metal. His boss and his biggest investors didn't wait for the lights to come up. They stood as one and walked toward the exit, their faces masks of professional disgust. I stood at the back of the hall, wearing a gown that cost more than most cars, and watched as the masterpiece of Julian's life cracked and crumbled in real time. I had appraised him, found him to be a fraud, and removed him from the collection. It's been 6 months. Julian is facing a massive civil suit from his firm and a criminal investigation for grand larceny and fraud. Clara has disappeared into the suburbs. Turns out, when she realized the government hero was a thief who had used her as a hiding place, she couldn't look at him again. My social circle thinks I'm a cold-blooded executioner. Julian's mother told me that I destroyed a brilliant man's legacy for a lapse in judgment, and that I should have protected the prestige of the Miller name. They say that by exposing the fraud so publicly, I've made it impossible for him to ever work again, essentially sentencing a genius to professional death. I don't feel like an executioner. I feel like an appraiser who finally told the truth about a fake. But when I walk past that brownstone and see the for sale sign, I have to wonder, AITA, was the digital retrospective too much? Should I have handled it in a lawyer's office? Or is the only way to deal with a master forgery to expose it under the brightest lights possible? I 24F have an older sister, Emma to 7F. Growing up, Emma was the golden child. She was the firstborn, the straightest student, the varsity soccer captain, the one teachers adored. My parents framed her report cards. They still have her state championship photo hanging above the fireplace. I was a fine, not terrible, not amazing, just a second kid. If Emma got a 98, my parents took her out to dinner. If I got a 92, they'd say, "That's great. But maybe ask your sister how she studies." If Emma forgot to do chores, she was busy. If I forgot, I was irresponsible. When Emma got into her dream college, they threw her a graduation party with 60 guests. When I got into a solid university with a scholarship, they told me they were tight on money, and we celebrated with pizza at home. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was being dramatic. But little things add up. When Emma decided to switch majors twice, my parents supported her financially the whole time. When I wanted to take an unpaid internship that would have helped my career, they said, "You need to be realistic." I worked a part-time jobs instead. Emma struggled with anxiety in college. My parents flew out to see her 3 times in 1 semester. When I called home crying during finals week, my mom said, "You've always been the strong one. You'll figure it out." I didn't feel strong. I felt invisible. The tipping point came last month at Emma's engagement dinner. She's marrying a great guy, and I'm genuinely happy for her. At dinner, my dad gave a toast about how Emma has always been the heart of this family and how she set the standard for excellence. Then he laughed and said, "And of course, my name followed in her footsteps." Everyone chuckled. I felt my face burn. I've built my own career in marketing. I bought my own car. I've never asked them for money since I was 18. But somehow, I was still just the one trailing behind Emma. After dinner, I pulled my parents aside. I didn't yell. I didn't insult anyone. I just said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me." I told them I've spent my whole life feeling second best, that I felt compared, minimized, overlooked. I brought up specific examples: college, the internship, the way they talk about us. I said I love Emma, but I'm tired of being introduced as her little sister instead of as myself. My mom immediately got defensive. She said I was keeping score and being petty during a happy time. My dad said I was overreacting, and that older siblings naturally have more milestones first. I told them this wasn't about milestones. It was about favoritism. Things got tense. I left early. The next day, Emma called me. I braced myself for a fight. Instead, she said, "I think you're right." Apparently, she'd noticed it too. She said she always felt pressure to be perfect, but she also saw how often our parents compared us. She admitted she'd never spoken up because she liked the approval. That hurt, but I appreciated her honesty. A few days later, my parents asked to come over. I expected round 2. Instead, my dad looked different, quieter, he said. After I left the dinner, he replayed the toast in his head and realized he couldn't remember the last time he publicly praised me without mentioning Emma. My mom admitted that they leaned on me because I was independent and didn't need as much attention. Then my mom said something that made me cry. "We thought calling you strong was a compliment. We didn't realize we were using it as an excuse to give you less." They apologized, not a half apology, a real one. They told me they were proud of me, my work ethic, my resilience, my creativity. My dad said, "You didn't follow in anyone's footsteps. You carved your own path, and we should have said that a long time ago." Since then, things have actually changed, small but meaningful ways. My parents came to a work event of mine last week and introduced me by my title, not as Emma's sister. They've made an effort to ask about my life without comparing it to hers. My dad even asked me for advice about marketing for his small business, which felt oddly huge. Emma and I have also grown closer, without the competition hanging over us. We've had real conversations. She admitted she sometimes envied my independence. I admitted I envied her confidence. We both realized our parents' dynamic affected us in different ways. So, AITA for bringing it up at her engagement dinner. Part of me still feels guilty about the timing. But another part of me knows that if I hadn't said something, I'd still be silently resenting them. For the first time in my life, I don't feel like the other daughter.